The U.S. makes serious accusations of cyber spying against China. We'll tell you what's behind them. Pope Francis resumes his busy schedule. We'll cover his meetings at the Vatican today. How the families of the kidnapped girls in Nigeria are coping with loss and uncertainty. And steps toward Christian unity. We look ahead to the Pope's trip to the Holy Land, marking Pope Paul VI's historic trip 50 years ago. Those stories and more just ahead on EWTN News Nightly for Monday, May 19th, 2014. Good evening. Thank you for joining us from Washington, D.C. tonight. I'm Brian Patrick. Looking at news now, beginning with landmark charges today. The U.S. accuses Chinese military officials of hacking American companies. Our Jason Calvi is at the Justice Department with that story tonight. Jason?
Brian, here at the Justice Department, they say the hackers targeted major U.S. companies like U.S. Steel and Westinghouse. We're told what's at stake is a lot of money and U.S. jobs.
While the men and women of our American businesses spent their business days innovating, creating, and developing strategies to compete in the global marketplace, these members were spending their business days in Shanghai stealing the fruits of our labor.
Those are the charges against these 5 Chinese Army officials. The indictment today says the hackers targeted Alcoa, Westinghouse, Allegheny Technologies, U.S. Steel, the United Steelworkers Union, and SolarWorld. It's the first time state officials have been charged with hacking.
The hackers stole internal trade strategy, attorney-client communications, and cost and production analysis. The conspiracy by Chinese hackers targeted each of these entities at critical times
to steal information from these entities that would be useful to their competitors in China, including state-owned enterprises.
If these men stand trial and are found guilty, they face many years in jail, including 15 years for economic espionage. Attorney General Eric Holder says these charges are a signal that the U.S. will be tough on cyber spying.
Enough is enough.
And the Attorney General says he hopes China will help to bring these men to the United States where they can face these charges, but it's unlikely. Brian, the Foreign Minister of China, dismissed these charges today. He called them unfounded and absurd.
But Jason, how do they make sense of these charges in light of the fact that the NSA has allegedly been spying on other countries, the U.S. government?
Well, the Attorney General Holder made a distinction today. He said all countries do surveillance, but what he said is it's at stake in this case is it's really about spying for profit, Brian.
All right, Jason Calvi at the Justice Department tonight. Now some of the other stories our EWTN News Nightly team has been covering in today's world. An Egyptian Islamic preacher extradited to the U.S. has been convicted of supporting terrorism. Mustafa Kemal Mustafa's sermons drew extremists to his London mosque before and after 9/11. Today, a federal court in Manhattan said he is guilty of providing a satellite phone for kidnappers in Yemen and sending men to an al-Qaeda training camp in Oregon. Today, U.S. District Judge Michael McShane struck down Oregon's voter-approved ban on so-called gay marriage. He said the ban unconstitutionally discriminates against same-sex couples. McShane joins judges in 7 other states who have overturned gay marriage bans, although appeals are pending. Today in Alabama, a trial over abortion law began. Its outcome could put 3 of Alabama's 5 licensed abortion clinics out of business. The federal court is considering a law that requires doctors who perform abortions to have credentials to admit patients to nearby hospitals. Planned Parenthood and the American Civil Liberties Union are challenging that law. And there is some fresh news about the Vatican's finances today. The Holy See's Financial Intelligence Authority has released a new report. The watchdog agency is working to make the Vatican's financial institutions more transparent. The agency director says a spike in suspicious transactions in 2013 shows the new system is working. The authority was charged with overseeing the financial operations of Vatican institutions in 2010 and is guaranteeing that the Vatican reaches international banking standards. Leaders of all faiths are condemning the death sentence ordered for a pregnant Sudanese woman who refused to renounce her Christian faith. Miriam Ibrahim was convicted of apostasy a week ago and given 4 days to repent to escape death. She was sentenced after that grace period expired. Now leaders of all faiths and many countries are speaking out. The Vatican took to social media to raise awareness on the case. Prosecutors in Turkey have arrested 2 more people as suspects in the mine explosion that killed more than 300. They're charging the supervisors of the company that owns the mine with negligence. Prosecutors say company officials took no action even after sensors registered high levels of toxic gas inside the mine days before the explosion. Well, we now know who the Prime Minister of the world's largest democracy will be. Narendra Modi wiped out the ruling Congress party that dominated Indian politics since that country regained freedom from British rule in 1947. The leader of the Congress party, Rahul Gandhi, failed to inspire public confidence. There was a record turnout in the election, 66% of India's 814 million eligible voters casting ballots during their 6-week contest. 3 months' worth of rain in just 3 days causes flooding in Serbia and Bosnia, the worst in recorded history there. Tens of thousands of people left their homes and dozens have died. The full death toll and the extent of the damage won't be known until those floodwaters recede. Turning now to Ukraine. Russian President Vladimir Putin ordered troops deployed near that country to return to their home bases today, but NATO says they've seen no sign of withdrawal. Despite the tension in the region, one young Ukrainian protester is hopeful for her country's future. It was back in February in Kiev's Independence Square when 21-year-old Olesia Zhukovska thought she had been fatally shot.
The bullet pierced my neck. It felt as if a stun grenade exploded near me. I was stunned.
Working as a medic in the heart of the chaos, she was hit by a sniper. On the way to the hospital, she tweeted a message. It read, "I am dying." The message and this picture went viral. Zhukovska became a symbol of the bloody protests.
I thought that was it. I thought it was the end.
Today, Zhukovska is back in her hometown in western Ukraine, living with her parents, still on medical leave from her job. She travels frequently to Kiev, to Independence Square, where emotions still run high today. Among the reminders of past battles, she reflects on the state of her country.
I wish there was no more spilled blood. Not to forget the event that took place. We need time. We need steps. We made only a few steps. We need much more in order to make significant changes.
One of those changes is fixing the economy.
Because of this economic crisis, all the good jobs are already taken, and salaries are ridiculously low. You just survive, and that's it.
But despite the stagnant economy, despite the continued confrontations between Ukrainians and Russian separatists, Zhukovska feels what happened in Kiev changed her country for the better.
Ukrainians became more united, became more idealistic. You can feel their spirit of cooperation.
For Zhukovska, the scars from the sniper's bullet are still there and still cause some pain. When she returns to the square where it all happened, her hope is it won't turn out to have been all in vain. Turning now to business news, America's largest cell phone service provider is now getting in on the pay TV trend. AT&T plans to buy DirecTV for almost $50 billion. The company says it will bundle mobile phone, pay TV, and internet service together on a single bill. But will this benefit consumers? Government agencies will be scrutinizing that.
I think DOJ and the FCC both have a role to play in to step in here and basically say enough is enough. We need more competitors.
An AT&T DirecTV merger would effectively cut the number of video providers from 4 to just 3 for about a quarter of U.S. households. In other business news tonight, British pharmaceutical company AstraZeneca is rejecting a $119 billion takeover offer from U.S. drug maker Pfizer. This decision caused a sharp slide in the UK company's share price today. Pfizer yesterday raised its offer by 15%, which would have made it the largest drug maker acquisition ever. The AstraZeneca board was quick to turn down the offer, saying it doesn't reflect the value its exciting pipeline of experimental drugs. Pfizer has 1 week to make another formal bid. If that doesn't happen, it can't bid again for 6 more months. Britain's Prince Harry is marking the 70th anniversary of one of the fiercest battles of World War II. The prince paid his respect to soldiers who gave their lives in the Battle of Italy's Monte Cassino 70 years ago. At that historic monastery, the Allies tried to take Rome, driving the Germans from their observation post at Cassino Mountain. Some veterans who fought in that battle also came to Italy for that ceremony. A Triple Crown victory may be in sight for the chestnut colt with 4 white feet. Kentucky Derby winner California Chrome finished first in Saturday's Preakness. The horse's co-owner Steve Coburn shed a few tears after the win. Coburn said he saw big things ahead for Chrome when the horse was born, despite his humble pedigree. A win at the Belmont Stakes June 7th would make California Chrome the first Triple Crown winner since 1978. Coming up, bishops, heads of state, royalty at the Vatican. Pope Francis crams a lot into one day. And looking ahead to the Pope's trip to the Holy Land and back to Paul VI's famous trip there 50 years ago. The one who listens attentively to the Word of God and truly prays always asks the Lord, "What is your will for me?" A tweet today from Pope Francis from @Pontifex. And as you watch EWTN News Nightly for this Monday, the 19th of May, more than 70 of Mexico's bishops met with Pope Francis today. They're in Rome for their pilgrimage to the tombs of the apostles. Important themes in Mexico right now are immigration, the advent of pro-abortion legislation, and pastoral care of people affected by the violence connected with drug trafficking. The bishop spoke to the Pope about the toll this violence has taken on Mexican society.
We have to rebuild, to move forward in rebuilding our social fabric and remembering that we are all brothers. No one should rise up against his brother or damage him, his life, or his property. No kidnappings. That means returning to the awareness that we are brothers.
Tens of thousands have died in Mexico's drug war. And the Prime Minister of Poland visited the Vatican today. Donald Tusk met with Pope Francis, and they spoke about the recent canonization of the Polish St. John Paul II and the Pope's trip to Poland for World Youth Day in 2016. The Prime Minister and the Pope also expressed concern about tensions in Eastern Europe. Tusk has been Prime Minister of Poland since 2007. And more royalty visiting Pope Francis today. The Holy Father received the King of Bahrain. The Vatican says the discussions were cordial and focused on peace and stability in the Middle East and peaceful coexistence. The contribution of Christian community in that nation also came up, as did the king's personal interest in the local Catholic community. According to the CIA, about 15% of the population of Bahrain is Christian, almost 70% is Muslim. And the whole world will be watching this coming weekend as Pope Francis makes a historic pilgrimage to the Holy Land. The visit commemorates a similar one a half-century ago that kick-started relations with the Orthodox. In the Vatican, they still talk about that visit, and Alan Holdren joins us from Rome with more. Alan?
As we can read in Greek, hoi hagioi adelphoi apostoloi, the holy brothers apostles who are embracing one another.
An image of hope for Christian unity. The apostles Peter and Andrew drawn close, east and west in embrace. Here in the halls of the Vatican's Department for Promoting Christian Unity, moments like that one are enshrined. Here, Pope Paul VI and Orthodox Patriarch Athanagris meeting in Jerusalem for the first time 50 years ago. There's a resemblance with the icon, which Paul VI gave to Athanagris at their historic meeting.
It's a kind of icon for all of us, how the church has to be, to walk together in friendship, the friendship of the Lord, praying together, listening to one another. So I think this icon here is a call for all of us that we pray with Jesus that all may be one.
Athanagris' successor Bartholomew I will be in Jerusalem to meet Pope Francis this weekend. They first met here in Rome just days after Francis' election, and every time they're together, it's a call to all Christians for greater unity.
Ecumenical dialogue is not only discussing high theological issues, it is firstly enter together into the prayer of Jesus that all may be one. Joining that dynamic movement of prayer and listening to one another, we become closer to one another.
Alan Holdren in Rome, EWTN News Nightly.
All right, thanks, Alan. And of course, the Pope getting a little rest Friday and over the weekend, but he stayed very busy today. This weekend, the Pope had an audience with a very special group. People with disabilities and their caretakers joined Francis. One man told the Pope he prays for him and he offers up his suffering for the Pope's ministry. You can see the Pope greeting that man with a hug and 2 kisses. Members of the group, which was founded by an Italian blessed, filled the Pope Paul VI Hall. The Vatican says 5,000 people were there. Up next, the latest from Nigeria, the kidnapped girls and their families struggling to cope. And what would you do if you found 40 grand in an old sofa you bought from a thrift store? We'll meet 3 roommates who did the right thing. You're watching EWTN News Nightly. Thanks for joining us. I'm Brian Patrick, and criticism is mounting against Nigeria's government this week. Critics say the military isn't doing enough to rescue hundreds of schoolgirls captured by the terrorist group Boko Haram. Now, a prominent African cardinal is voicing his concern. Wyatt Goolsby joining us now with details. Wyatt?
Brian, today Cardinal Peter Turkson spoke out against Boko Haram's terrorist activities in the northeast part of Nigeria, but he also says a government should protect its people, and there's a question if they are really doing all they can to stop the terrorism.
The situation is very distressing. I mean, the sad thing for me is that it appears as if, Nigerians or people in that part of Nigeria cannot count on the government for security, for protection. That, I think, is very distressing.
Cardinal Peter Turkson of Ghana and president of the Pontifical Council for Justice and Peace is part of a growing group, Africans who are voicing their criticism of the Nigerian government. This weekend, Africans in Brussels rallied for support, calling to bring back our girls. It's been more than a month since a mass abduction of more than 200 schoolgirls, and most of them are still being held prisoner. Terrorists have threatened to sell the girls into slavery. Cardinal Turkson says no amount of public outcry will stop the extremist group, but he says putting the spotlight on the government might help.
And I think the government of Nigeria really has to find a way of dealing with the group.
In the meantime, the attacks from Boko Haram continue. Alhaji Ali Hassan lost 3 of his brothers in an attack on their village nearly 2 weeks ago.
The truth of the matter is that there is nothing we can do. We cannot defend ourselves. These guys have all kinds of guns. The army that is supposed to protect us, they are very close by, but they refuse to come and defend us. So what can we do? There is nothing we can do.
Some Nigerian soldiers speaking anonymously say the military doesn't have powerful weapons and are not paid well enough to risk their life in a fight with Boko Haram. Even with technical help from the U.S., it looks like this fight is far from over. Wyatt Goolsby, EWTN News Nightly.
Thank you, Wyatt. The founder and executive producer of Altum Productions, Jordan Allott, joins us now. He just returned from Nigeria. And why were you there? What did you see when you were there?
Well, I had the opportunity a couple of weeks ago, to go to Nigeria with National Community Church and an international human rights organization called the Jubilee Campaign. And we were there to meet with the beleaguered Christians of Nigeria. We were there to pray with them, to provide material and spiritual support for them. And I was there also to film them, shoot interviews, and hopefully bring back their story to other Americans, especially Christians, so that we can go out and spread awareness about the plight of Christians in Nigeria. And they're facing a lot of persecution from Boko Haram.
Were you able to talk to any of the relatives of the schoolgirls who were kidnapped?
Yes, we did speak with a relative, an individual who actually had 12 relatives, 12 girls, nieces and other family members who were abducted during the April 14th mass abduction. And he told us fantastic stories, horrible stories about what took place. The girls were kidnapped, and luckily one of the girls escaped. She was kept with cattle, actually. All the girls were kept with Boko Haram in this big pen as if they were cattle. And when the individuals, Boko Haram, went off to pray that night, as they do, of course, 5 times a day, she snuck under the thorns that were keeping them pent up and received very deep scars on her face and in her body, but she was able to escape the pen and eventually return to town and her family.
You know, a lot of us have been told that Boko Haram means, an opposition to Western education, especially for girls. But you found that that's not exactly the translation, is it?
Right. A number of individuals that we interviewed and talked to wanted us to sort of get that message out that Boko Haram actually is a nickname. But Boko in the local Hausa language up in the northern part of Nigeria means book. They have a difficult time saying the word book, so they say Boko. And it really refers to people of the book. so Jews and Christians. And haram means forbidden or evil or sinful. So Boko Haram actually refers to Christianity, Christians, anything having to do with Christianity is evil or forbidden. So it's not just Western education, but it's anything having to do with Christianity. And that's why, of course, their objective is to get rid of all Christians and anything having to do with Christianity from Nigeria.
As you filmed and as you talked to these people, what did you learn about them? How did you connect with them?
Well, I think everybody in the group learned a lot from them about their deep faith. A lot of them had family members who were killed. They had been shot, raped. Their homes, their churches, their schools have been burned down. They've been pushed out of northern Nigeria, but they still had their faith. Many of the individuals we met with that were most inspiring to me were converts from Islam to Christianity. They have lost everything. Their family had turned against them. Many of them were hiding from their family because the family members were coming after them to force them to convert back or to even kill them. They had their children taken from them and sent off to Saudi Arabia and other places. But they still had a deep faith. That's all they had left was their faith. And so I think everybody in the group learned a lot about that and wanted to come back to the U.S. and spread the message that we need to not expect the media in general to stand up and tell these stories. But if we Christians aren't telling the story, and you guys, of course, have done a great job of that here, but if we're not telling that story, then how can we expect others to do it?
That video we were just watching, you captured some beautiful faces and families. What do you hope to do with that?
Well, we hope to, again, to spread awareness. I think a lot of Christians here in the U.S. or in the West in general, we don't understand what other people around the world are sacrificing for their faith. And so we need to connect, we need to stand in solidarity with Christians, whether it be in Nigeria, in the Middle East, in parts of Asia, who are forced to live under very difficult circumstances and the fear of death. So our main objective is to raise awareness and also advocate on their behalf.
They are our brothers and sisters in Christ. That's really some beautiful footage that you shot, and I'm sure that it will have an impact, and we appreciate you sharing your story with us.
Thank you.
All right. Well, the three roommates found something. They bought a beat-up couch and a chair for $55. They thought they got a steal, and then they looked inside. They noticed the arm cushions were lumpy. They looked more closely, and they found $4,000 in bubble-wrapped bills, but that's not the half of it. These roomies kept mining treasure stashed inside their new couch and collected a total of $40,800. Later, they found a deposit slip with the name of a woman on it.
I think we were like halfway through counting it or something like that, and Callie just spotted like this bank statement, what just says her name, and we're like, oh, like we know what we have to do now, you know.
It's good they knew. The New York roommates drove to the home of the woman to return the money. She's a 91-year-old woman, and I know that she was grateful for their honesty. Well, this weekend, one of the top NFL quarterbacks gave a shout-out to our network, EWTN. Take a listen.
Although I had been on ESPN and many other national TV sports broadcasts throughout my career, my mother once told me when I appeared on EWTN's Life on the Rock that I had really made it to the big time.
Yeah, I got a chance to interview San Diego Chargers quarterback Phillip Rivers last year in connection with a fundraiser in San Diego. This weekend, he gave the commencement address at the Catholic University of America. Couldn't see him there, but you see him there getting an honorary degree. He talked about his priorities, faith, family, and football. And he says spending time with his wife Tiffany and their 7 children helped to keep his life in perspective, and he looks good in that wonderful robe and receiving his honorary degree. Thank you so much for being with us tonight. Be sure to like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter. Catch us again on EWTN's YouTube page. For all of us here at EWTN News Nightly, I'm Brian Patrick. We'll see you tomorrow. We're on 5 days a week now. Thanks for watching tonight. Good night and God bless you.